Hello, you're listening to E-Bible Fellowship's new open form excerpts, and now we present the following excerpt.
Welcome to our program. Please go ahead with your call.
Hi, Chris. Matthew 16:26, please.
Okay, Matthew 16. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?
I was just wondering if you could explain this verse to me. Do you believe people sell their souls? Why do people do a lot of evil for money? Like a lot of things people will do for money. Can you explain it?
Remember how God speaks of Esau selling his birthright, and he sold it for a bowl of porridge, a bowl of hot soup. And he counted it as nothing. And that's revealing because Esau is also called Edom. And Edom is the same word as Adam without the vowel points. And Adam is man. So Esau, or Edom, when he has such little regard for his birthright, and his birthright would be the birthright of the firstborn. The blessing is given to the firstborn. It's a blessing of God. And so it's very little regard for God's blessing, for the good things that God can give. And we see in that account in Genesis, let me go back there it's been a while since I looked at it. In Genesis, in chapter 25, in verse 29, and Jacob sowed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. And so this is where God is basically making that identification. And Edom is Strong's number 123. Adam is 121. And if you look in your concordance, you'll see it's the same consonants. Same consonants, different vowel points. Vowel points are not inspired, added later by the Masoretes. Just look at the consonants, and we find that God does here especially use Esau as a picture of man. Just consider when Adam was born, he was the firstborn of God. According to Luke's genealogy, it goes all the way back down through all the names of men who lived, and it comes to Luke 3, verse 38, which was the son of Enos, which was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which was the son of God. So God created Adam, and Adam was his son. A firstborn son, the firstborn man, even though he wasn't born, he was formed from the dust of the ground, but still it is in the sense of, this is my first son. And God said, I'll bless you. You'll have all the blessings of this world. You are to have dominion. He made Adam ruler, to rule over this new creation. Nothing but blessing. Great, tremendous blessing. And one condition: don't eat of the fruit of that tree. Don't eat of the fruit of that tree, and the day you eat thereof, you'll surely die. And more than that, Adam became cursed and lost the blessing of the firstborn. He lost the blessing of God that comes to the firstborn. And who received it? It's why Jesus is called the second Adam. Jesus, as we read in the New Testament, is like a second Adam, because in Christ, God's firstborn from the dead, there's restoration of the blessing to the firstborn. And that's the whole picture between Jacob and Esau. the struggle in the womb, Jacob grabbing a hold of Esau's heel. It's a battle to be the firstborn. Well, Esau, Edom, man, Adam comes first. But here, Esau, now called Edom, Adam, loses the right of the firstborn, just like Adam. Just like Adam before him, who was created from the dust of the ground. And Jacob receives the blessing of the birthright. And so Jacob here would be really a picture of Christ and all the elect in Christ. But notice how cheaply it's sold. I am faint. Give me this pottage. In verse 31, Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die. And what profit shall this birthright do me? And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he sware unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. And man has been doing this ever since. Yeah, with some people, their price is money. Some come cheap, some more expensive. With others, well, their price is other things of the world. Maybe it's a woman, or maybe it's a man, whatever it is. Maybe it's power, maybe it's authority. It's all, man is willing, people are willing to exchange things, temporal things for the moment, things that are in the present, temporal things for eternal things. And that happens all the time, all the time. Quite a number of people right now, quite a number of people who ought to know better, former family radio listeners or former family radio children or e-Bible children. When they were children, they heard these things, they heard the gospel. And then they grow up, and there's all the allurements of the world, all the flashing lights, all the exciting things, all the things the world's involved with, going out to party and drinking and carousing and the pleasures of sin. And with a number of family radio children, they were taught these things in their early life. They didn't go after these things. But now that they're grown, well, there it is. There it is. And they seem to have no time for God, no time for the Bible. And yet, what is truly the most important thing? The most important thing in this life is a man's relationship to God, doing things God's way. It is serving God. It is carrying out in a proper way what we were created to do, to obey him. And all kinds of people, they try to substitute. And then there's again, depending on age, depending on various circumstances, a time of excitement, enjoyment. The same things that excite early on will choke you after a while. They'll choke you. They'll grab a hold of you. They'll make you miserable. They'll destroy you, because that's what sin does. Sin presents itself as this beautiful, desirous thing you have to have. You have to have it. And so you go after it and you get it. And then you realize, or hopefully you soon realize, I didn't really need that. As a matter of fact, since I've gone after that and have been doing this sin, things are not going well for me, or there's trouble in my life, and so forth. And finally, sin is like the hook. I'm not a good fisherman, but I understand how it's supposed to work. You cast your line into the sea with an allurement, right? Bait. And fish comes swimming along, and it looks good to him. Normally not when I fish, but it looks good to him. With some people, they really have a talent for this. And he takes the bite. And that thing that was so attractive has a hook in it that sticks fast and now he can't get loose. And so he's being reeled in, reeled in. Some fishermen reel them in slowly as not to lose them. And that's how it is over time, over the course of our lives. The sinner who has taken the bait and in being deceived, and his own deceptive, the heart of man's desperately wicked, deceitful above all things, his own desperately wicked and deceitful heart has been fully willing to be deceived. And he did take the bait and he's bitten on something and he tries. This is where alcoholics come in and drug addicts come in and people that ruin their lives with immoral sexual relationships comes in, and all kinds of other evil comes in, lusting after money, always needing the latest gadget, and they're hooked and they don't know. Sometimes with some people, they die young and they're reeled in quickly because sin is the sting that leads to death. It is a part of death. And if you're hooked on a sin, then you are soon to die because that day is coming, guaranteed, and it will destroy you and kill you in an eternal way shortly, because that's where we're at in time and history. We're near the end of all things for this life. And yet with God's grace, the elect, we're just like everyone else, children of wrath like everyone else, desirous after sin like everyone else, when prior to salvation and even now in the physical body. But God delivers us. He delivers us with the new heart and new spirit. And it's a different desire placed within us to go away from sin. Joseph is such an excellent example. And he was a young man. He was a young man in Potiphar's house. He was sold as a slave, age 17, and probably spent several years in the house, and he was running the house. So he was in his 20s, his early 20s, when Potiphar's wife started trying to get him to lie with her. And he wouldn't countenance the idea. How can I do this kind of a thing and sin before God? And he would not. He refused. And finally, she got bolder, grabbed a hold of him, and he ran out the door. He fled. That is an excellent example for every one of us. When sin comes, don't play around. Don't play with it. Don't see how far you can go, in enduring it before you cross the line, or how close you can get to the line before you cross over. No, Joseph didn't do that. He ran. He ran. He didn't care what she thought. And it turns out, running from her, it angered her. And so she lied to her husband, Potiphar, and saying Joseph had tried to lie with her, which made things worse for Joseph, and he was thrown into prison. You can look at that a couple different ways. It went from bad to worse, or there's no temptation that has taken you that is not common to men, and that God will not suffer you to be tempted above that you're able. And by having him thrown into prison, the Lord removed him from that temptation. Of course, we know there's spiritual meanings to all these things, but he's no longer in Potiphar's house, no longer dealing with that woman. And Joseph successfully obeyed God through that temptation. And that's what we really, all of us, of course, because we're all in bodies of flesh that are not saved, and we still fail God, we fail to glorify him, and we should learn to be more like Joseph and more determined, and to be less kind, less merciful to our flesh. We may have a soft spot for our own flesh. Of course, it's part of us, and it moans a little bit, poor me, some self-pity, some cast down. And oh, you know what an answer is to make you feel better, to help you out? Let's go do this thing. Let's return to this thing. And no, we're not to coddle the flesh, we're to kill the flesh, mortify your members, put them to death. Not literally, of course, spiritually. And what will put the flesh to death is to starve it, to not give it its desire, its wicked, evil desire. That's what's in view in Matthew 16. And I want to read that again. Matthew 16 in verse 24. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? And what are we profited? If we were the richest billionaire in the world, if we had all the things that money could buy, well, you have it today, but it's soon gone. Like really the flower of grass today is, tomorrow is cast into the oven, and then it's gone forever. And any kind of enjoyment or pleasure or things of the world is unfulfilling, unsatisfying, eternally. And believe me, memories don't satisfy. So having something in the past, it's not something that soothes you or satisfies you today. And so having the things of the world, it's just not worth it, of course. And yet I think people understand that, but it all comes down to God's mercy. And if God will grant a new heart and a new spirit to really teach them that from the heart, that's the only way that a person will change.
Thanks for watching, and be on the lookout for more new open forum excerpts that will be added periodically.